What's good, everybody? This is your girl, Kimberly Gunn, and I'm rocking the Timeless Sounds.
It smells so good right now. Feels so good right now. Yeah, yeah.
Here, rocking up with Timeless Sounds, man.
Don't never, ever, ever wanna calm down. No, no.
G Money.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man?
Oh, man. So I'm adjusting a little bit, but how you feeling, man? How's the day?
Good.
Oh, hold on.
Something is on.
Yeah.
Got the speaker on.
No, my headphone. Had to unplug it. So just as a rule of thumb, always wear headphones and always make sure your speakers are off. Because like you guys just heard, it's called a loop back. Like the audio comes back in into the mix. You know,
Right.
How was your day, man?
Man, my day was pretty fun. It was just me and Joshua today because I didn't have a babysitter. And yeah, I was out here with the little man. Took him on a bike ride, knocked him out on the bike trail, and brought him back home and was able to get some stuff done here at the house. And picked up my daughter, and now she's back out again. So
That's
fun
what's
day,
up, man.
you know.
Real
Daddy
fun
duty.
day. So everybody, welcome to As a Producer. You know, I am your co-host, Gabriel Ori, and I got my my dude, my business partner, my music buddy right next to me, Mr. J.R. Johnson. And you know, we are the group that makes up Timeless Sounds. And this is As a Producer, and we say all the time, you know, it's not strictly about music, even though we're into music, but whatever you're a producer of, you know, we like to tell people, you know, you've been born here, you've been put here on earth to produce something, and just your job is to find out what that is. Go to the manufacturer, find out, you know, what your production is, and then get busy, you know, being productive. So excited that you're here to join us. Please share. If you have questions, you know, like always, post your questions out. Get it in the room. We have a very special guest. But before we get into that guest, I want to do a shameless plug. You know,
Go ahead, man.
So hey.
What's up, Troy?
What's up, man? So you know, couple things, you know, happening, you know, in the music world, in the music scene. My song came out this year. Whoo! If you don't have that song yet, you need to get that in your system. Get that in your playlist. Another thing, you know, we're part of the group, you know, Tribe Music, and we got some stuff about the EP dropped last month. Great reviews on that EP. We got a special song that we're about to do a video. So just kind of, you know, keep in the mix with us, keep in tune with what's going on, you know, with everything that we got going. Without further ado, you know, we got a very special guest in the building. He's a producer of something very major. JR, do you want to introduce our guest?
I'm just gonna let him do it himself. You know, I got a video out. He's gonna tell everything that he does, and from there, we're gonna bring him in afterwards. Here it is.
Hi, my name is Sonny Kelly. I'm a scholar, writer, and an actor. I'm also the proud husband of Elena Kelly and the proud father of Sterling and Langston Kelly. And I'm the performer and writer of The Talk. I was having a conversation with my son one day. At the time he was 7 years old, and I was taking him to a typical day of first grade, and we heard on the radio about riots in Baltimore, and the cause of all this was Freddie Gray. that moment, I had the revelation, the understanding that I had to somehow convey to my son a warning that one day he would be a black man in a world where life is oftentimes tough and dangerous, precarious. And so in that moment, I had what is commonly known as the talk with him. So The Talk is a dynamic one-man show that includes a performance of one person in a room with a group of people for about an hour and 20 minutes, playing over 20 characters, bringing in images, sound, literature from people like Langston Hughes, W.E.B. Du Bois, James Baldwin, and then closing out with a really important conversation with the audience afterward. You know, one thing that's really important to me is that everybody knows that The Talk is for you. It's for every demographic that you can imagine. And one of the best compliments that anyone ever paid me was a white man who stood up in the middle of an audience after the show was over. We've laughed, we cried, we had all these wonderful moments. And he said, "I want to thank you for calling me in and not calling me out." It's about us getting in a room together, having tough conversations, and staying in that room and calling each other in to community. It's about community building and unity building.
Not Mr. Dr. Kelly.
Hey, you call me mister, call me brother, I'll take it all. Just don't call me late for dinner. I'm glad I'm here. Gabe, JR, how you doing, fellas?
What's up, man?
We're doing wonderful, man.
We want you to take this pleasure. You know, JR, he didn't want to introduce you. He said he gonna let you do it. Now, I know he played a little clip, but why don't you tell the people personally who you are?
Well, let me just tell you first, I was a little bit intimidated when JR asked me to come on because I was like, wait, Timeless Sounds. These guys are music producers. They're, at top of their game. I don't sing a lick. They're going to make me sing something? I'll tear it. But I realized that, and JR, I really appreciate you. I said, I'm not really a producer of music. And he said, but you produce things. And like you said earlier, Gabe, we were all put on this earth to produce, to bear fruit. So, I've been acting. I'm from the LA area, Orange County. I've been acting since I was, for over 3 decades now. And I've been writing theater, especially started with a gospel play that I started writing back in 2003 or so, and produced finally in 2009 a gospel show called Hope's Light. And then from there, I had this experience with my son. I went on to get my PhD. And in all of my studies, all of my working, I realized that I'm called to perform for a purpose always, right? And the best writer for me is me, because God gives me messages, whether it's the story of redemption and the importance of fathers and the importance of our Father in heaven and salvation, which you see in Hope's Light, my gospel play, or if it's in the Talk and how important it is that we talk about the difficult issues in our society, such as race, right?
Yeah.
And then my latest piece, Haunted, it haunted me. I started doing research about why do we see blackness the way we do? Even black folks, right? Why do people seem so uncomfortable around blackness, right? Mm-hmm. Let me just give you an example. Why is it that America seems really comfortable with Kamala Harris in some ways? Lighter skin, AKA from Howard, this kind of, all these, got the pedigree, right? But then they see Stacey Abrams has the same pedigree, but natural hair, heavy set, darker skin. People don't talk about her with the same ease and the same joy. I just noticed, I just watch people. I think the best actors and writers are people who just watch people. And I'm like, people don't get excited in their faces about Stacey Abrams the way they do about a Kamala Harris. And I think there may be many reasons, but I think one of those reasons is because blackness in and of itself has always made Americans of all ilks and hues uncomfortable, and that's a problem for me. And so I looked at the fact that our notion of what blackness is has haunted us over time. So I dug deep and did some research for that, and then put that into another one-man show. And so now I'm challenging people to have conversations where we're honest with ourselves and realize that we need to transform the way we see and talk about and deal with blackness and black people. So that's how I got into this world of production. So right now I'm a teacher. I teach communication at Fayetteville Technical Community College. That's my heart. That's my love. My father was a teacher. And I find that anything that I put my hands to, whether it's theater or storytelling, a one-man show, even comedy, it's always about teaching and connecting people to a higher purpose that, I know for me and for you all, it comes from our Creator. We were made in His image, and He is the ultimate creator. So we were made to create. So that's all I do.
Absolutely.
Dope. It sounds like you're very astute, man, in your knowledge for what you do. Because when I listen to you talk, it's like you don't skip a beat, man. You just like,
right.
It's pouring out. You see what I'm saying? Like, how long have you been doing what you are doing?
Well, you know, what's funny is I love talking to young people because I've been working with young people for really a long time, for decades now.
You said young people. You
Not
still
you all.
look pretty. No. You still look pretty young yourself.
Oh, I thank you. That's just because I've got good genes and
Very
and
good
clean
genes.
living, and a woman takes care of me too. That all that stuff helps me look. Thank you for that, Gabe. I received the compliment. But I know I'm old when I'm teaching a class with 16 to even 20 something or even 30 something year olds, and I say something about Gilligan's Island, or I'll say something about the show Cheers. I say sometimes you want to go, and I expect them to say where everybody, and they just look at me like,
And they're just
what?
looking at you.
What? Go
What's he
where?
talking about?
You want me to leave it? And so, yeah, I'm getting older. I'm I'm at that midlife. And so for me, you know, having worked with young people in terms of just teens and youth as a youth pastor for now over 2 decades now, it looks like, wow, time is flying. It's helped me to get into the heart and mind of young people and really to allow myself to play, because that's how I found to connect to young people. You got to play and not take yourself too seriously. And in the midst of doing that, I've learned that performance really is something you can do on a stage or off a stage. And sadly, a lot of us are performing based upon expectations of other people. And so for me, for a long time, I was always performing. I was always trying to be whatever other people wanted me to be. And I didn't know who I was. So I was struggling trying to figure things out. And over the course of time, I realized, you know what? I just got to be me, and I've got to write whatever comes out of me naturally, tell the stories that I tell, and perform in my own way. And to be honest, I didn't think I'd ever be an actor again once I realized I wasn't going to LA or New York because that wasn't my calling. I thought, well, there's nothing else for me. And God said, no, I got a plan for you. I want you to do it with this particular purpose, to embolden, to empower, to educate other people. So, you know, the reason why I'm able to speak so clearly about this is because I spent the better part of the last 2 to 3 decades struggling to figure out who I was. And when I finally figured it out, and then I went through the grueling work of getting a PhD about it, about communication and performance, I better know. I'm like, man, I done been through the fire, right? I feel confident and clear, and I'm so excited because I see a lot of young people, and I'll say people even young in spirit. There are people who are older than me who haven't yet found that joy, that peace, and that purpose. And so I can tell them it's okay. I've been there. I want you to just breathe. And I always tell people this: let your story breathe. Share it with people. Be bold. And as you let your stories breathe, let your writing breathe, whether it's poetry, whether it's music, whether it's narrative, whatever it is, as you let it breathe, it'll start to write itself, because it's not about you. It's about what God is doing through you. And it took me a long time to get there. And so I've got this joy now because I get it. And so I go hard. Yeah, I pretty much interview myself. So let me be quiet.
No, you good.
No, man.
So as you talk, and you got to a point where you felt that you was going to be doing one thing, but then it didn't happen for you. So then you switched it to do something else. What was it like for you to get that break through? Because I think it's a lot of people, and I don't even want to say young people, I just want to say people that don't know what their production is, and they try to mimic other people. And when you do that, it's kind of like you trying to walk in somebody else's shoes or calling, and that can literally kill you. Really. Listen, it will. When did you get to your point?
I always tell people, you got to do you, because you is the best you can do. and that's really all we need. All we need is you. We don't need anybody else. We already got them, right? For me, it was, let's see, you know what it was? It was working in youth ministry. And it was trying to figure out how to connect to kids. And I knew well before that, I'd say that early in my 20s, I knew I wasn't going to be an actor for several reasons. There were some sacrifices and some compromises I wasn't willing to make. I wasn't interested in moving back to California, especially because I'd met my wife by my mid-20s. And I was like, going to late 20s, like, nah, I want to stay here in the Carolinas or wherever she goes, because she was in the military still. And I was like, nah, I don't have the passion, the fire. Because I have a friend, Sterling K. Brown, who's a great actor. He's very accomplished. But I remember going to see him in Harlem, and he lived in a one-room, not one-bedroom, one-room apartment in Harlem, where some dude had died in the hallway earlier that summer, and you could still smell the stench of death in the hallway. And Sterling was just happy to be there because he was on that grind. He was pressing into his calling. I said, no, I don't love it that much. I won't be doing this. I think I knew something inside me said, no, you don't love it that much, Sonny. And so I was at this place where I was like, well, I know I love the Lord. I know I love young people. I've been called to youth ministry. I don't know if this is my calling, but it's what I love to do. And here's what happened, Gabe. As I pressed into just doing me, being the guy who loves kids and loves being around them, I started finding ways. Really, God started finding ways for me to incorporate my acting. I would start to not only be play characters as I told Bible stories, etc. But I would start to develop scripts, and I'd have the kids act in plays and in theater. I'd have them write some things, and we were doing things that I never thought I would have done in that vein of being an actor. If I would have just stopped and said, I'm not an actor, let me stop. But I pressed into purpose because I knew I kept being called to young people. I just always had a heart for young people. And so I used my gift. I could have just done motivational speaking, or I could have just been a clear Bible teacher, and we need those. But I do it in a performative way because that's just what's in me. So I let that just, again, do you, right? So I let that just flow. And what happened was I was putting in those hours. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell, in one of his books, perhaps The Turning Point, or it was something where he talks about the fact that once you get to about 10,000 hours of doing something, you're truly an expert, and it's something where you are really the top of the line at what you do. And I didn't realize this, but the more I was spending time counseling young people, teaching young people, incorporating theater into what I was doing with young people, I was creating this expertise and how to connect to hearts and minds through theater and through performance for a purpose. Like there's always a destination. I was always trying to get you to making better choices, to salvation, to seeing the beauty that is in you. I was always trying to drive toward that. As the comedian Michael Jr. would say, it's always about the punchline, right? I realized I had a punchline. I just didn't know that it could expand beyond just ministry. Of course, all we do is ministry. But when I say ministry, I mean like the four walls, as the youth pastor. And so I dabbled in working in the community for a nonprofit for a while. Of course, I've done some things. I was an Air Force officer. That's how my wife and I met. I've done a lot of different things in life. And I found that no matter what I was doing, I always was alive when I was up in front of people, being creative and helping them to develop creative ways to deal with difficult issues. Whether I was briefing an air crew back in the Air Force, and I was trying to get them to understand, if you crash, you got to make sure you follow these rules and learn these words in Arabic or Urdu or wherever you might land, right? To make sure that you can get through to get to help. This is serious stuff, but I would try to find ways. So I'd call myself the information sensation. I'd throw out lollipops as I'd quiz people during the intelligence briefing. And it was very unorthodox, and people thought I was kind of weird, but they enjoyed it. And I found that no matter where I go, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my classroom, I'm going to turn the military briefing room, I'm going to turn the pulpit in church into a comedy set / motivational speak / draw you to where you need to go to get the life-saving, soul-saving information that you need. So that's what I do. I'm always empowering, engaging, and educating. So over these last few decades, I've just been doing it in different ways for different audiences. So I'd say in the last 5 years or so, 5 to 7 years, is when I realized, okay, I got my groove. I'm in the zone. It doesn't matter where I'm doing it. As long as I'm doing this, I can do it anywhere. So that's why if you look at my website, and as JR introduces me, you see I can say a long list of things: educator, motivational speaker, performer, writer, director, comedian. Because I'll do whatever you need. I'm gonna do that. And it's not because I'm trying to establish multiple streams of income and trying to hustle. I used to be a hustler. I was trying to do everything. Now it's just because I know that whatever it takes to speak your language, to get to your heart, if I can write a play for you, cool. If I can tell you a joke, cool. If I can teach you a lesson, whatever it is, or all three of those, I can do them because I've been doing them for so long. And kids are the toughest folks, especially middle schoolers. They're the toughest folks to keep in a room. So you're talking about a guy who's been a youth pastor for a couple of decades. I've been able to keep 8th graders sitting down listening to me. I didn't always have that. I had to go through the fire. I had some people walk out on me, laugh in my face, make fun of me. I've been through all that. Right? But the kids really have refined me.
Wow. I want to say for the audience, just a sidebar, this is what passion sounds like. And this is what passions look like. When you see that vein coming on the side of his neck when he's talking, that means he's in it.
I'm in it. I am. And one reason why I'm so excited about you guys and what you're doing and the fact that you invited me here is that there's somebody listening right now who has a dream or an idea, and they think, well, I don't really fit the mold. I don't know if yes, you can, because I don't fit the mold. I don't know what I am. That's why I have this long list of things I do. I just show up, and I love the people right there, and I use the gifts that I've developed over time, and I'm so excited to do that, but also to inspire other people to do the same. Everybody can't be at me, and I don't want you to be at me. It's too much. The world I'm a lot. I'm a lot. The world doesn't want another me. You do you.
Right, exactly.
So how is it? So you mentioned acting and things like that, and you're from the California area, whereas the home or the pillar of there's to act. Like, how do you do that?
Well, I got my SAG card, my Screen Actors Guild card, when I was 12. I did a Levi's commercial. And really, it all started with my brother. I talk about purpose and drive. I really got that growing up under Brent Kelly, who was my brother. He was a middle child. He was shorter. He had allergies all the time. He was kind of like the runt of the litter, so to speak. And he had this Napoleonic complex, and he always lived and spoke and wanted bigger than what he had. And so I remember when, I guess he was 3 years older than me, so when he was about, I'll say 14 or so, 13, 14, he went to my mom and he said, hey, we live about an hour south of LA. I want an agent. I want to start acting. I'm seeing these kids on these commercials. I think I can do it. And he pressured my mom and my dad enough to where they put him into an acting class over in Newport Beach, just up the street from us in Orange County. And he got an agent within about a year. He went to a showcase, and his agent put him through that showcase, and he was discovered. Oh, I should say his acting teacher put him through the showcase. An agent discovered him, picked him up. They started sending his pictures out, and before we knew it, he was doing commercials. He did an episode of an old show called Webster. A lot of folks don't remember that. That was back in the 80s. He was in Michael Jackson's Moonwalker video. They did a little Baby Bad, the Bad video. They had little kids doing bad, and he was one of the rough kids in that. And he was just doing just different stuff here and there. And I really thought, that's cool. I want to be like that. But I was not the extrovert that I am now. I was more shy. I was the baby brother. I was a shy brother. And so my mom just asked me one day, hey, you think you might want to do that? And I thought, me? Oh, okay. So I started taking classes. His agent saw me. She took me on. I did several auditions. I remember my first year or so, I just was awkward. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what this thing was about. I was trying to be what they wanted me to be. And that is where I'm out of my zone, right? There's no passion in that. They're just trying to make a paycheck, trying to win. And I've been saying this to a lot of people lately. I was thirsty. I wasn't hungry. And what that means is when you're thirsty, you're just like, I'll take whatever you can get. Do I look okay? And you're desperate, and you people can just tell. And when you walk in a room, you don't own the room, you don't own the space, and nobody wants to watch somebody on screen who's just thirsty, who just wants the next job, But it wasn't until I learned I really like acting. I like connecting to people. I want to do this work because it matters. Then I developed a hunger, right? And I've learned this, that thirst attracts pimps, but hunger attracts patrons. Hunger attracts people who want to support you, invest in you, hire you. Okay, come on to the team. Thirst attracts people who want to take advantage of you. So there are a lot of people who say, I want to make it in LA. And so they're paying all this money up front to go to these showcases and try to get discovered because they're thirsty. And and pimps know, or people who want to take advantage of you know, if you're thirsty, you'll pay the money and they can use you up and you'll have nothing to show for it. But if you're just doing the work, you're doing community theater, you're doing it for free. You're just trying to, like y'all been making beats for free forever, right? Just doing it because you love it. That's hunger. And all of a sudden somebody comes along and picks up the bootleg, or just listens to something online. Like, oh wait, who was that? Oh, that came out of Timeless? Okay, Timeless Sounds, they're doing it, right? Because y'all, even to this day, you'll get an idea, and I know this because I know how you all work. You'll wake up in the middle of the night, make a beat, ain't nobody paying you for that. And you don't even know if you're going to make money from it, but it's the love, it's the hunger, right? So I didn't have that hunger at first. I had the thirst. But at age 12, I finally got a job. After a year, I finally learned how to work a room. I learned, okay, I like this. I started developing more hunger. And then I got a job in a Levi's commercial. And then from there, about every 6 months or so, I get another little job. I had a Rice Krispies commercial, a McDonald's commercial, KFC commercial. I got a job working on. I did one episode of Full House when I was, I think, 16. I did Full House. I was
about to ask you about that one too.
I did an episode of Wonder Years, and got to meet the cast, and I really got to feel what it's like to be amongst people who are at the top of the game in what they do, and to just own that space. I'm like, yeah, I belong here. I auditioned. I got the part. I had the energy. But what I was missing, though, was a true connection to purpose. I was doing it because it was popular, because I could make money, because I liked it. I liked to feel. I like feeling important. I like seeing my name on a dressing room and going in. You can go to what they call craft services. At craft services, you eat whatever you want. They have quality food 3 times a day plus snacks. I was just tearing up. I was eating stuff. I was eating almonds. I didn't even like almonds. I was like, but they're free. So I was loving it because they treat you in LA and New York, when you're an actor, when you get cast in something, especially as a feature performer, they treat you like you are really somebody special. And so I got used to that, and I started to desire more of that. And so that's why I kept on acting all the way till I was 18. Then I got to be 18 and I had to make a choice. Either go to University of Southern California, where I was accepted, or go to Stanford University, where I was accepted. University of Southern California, I could keep on acting. Like, I had just auditioned for a role in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air at this time. And it was a moment where I was going to have to leave to go to Stanford or stay at USC. And I had to tell my agent I can't go back to the callback, even though, I mean, it's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? But I had decided to go to Stanford, which is in the Bay Area. There's not a lot of acting going on up there. There's some, but not as much of the industry. And so I kind of shifted and I changed my acting career based upon the fact that I knew there was something else for me. I knew college was important. I knew Stanford was a great school, and there was a lot for me there. I didn't know what, but I had to step into the unknown. And here's what's cool. This is how God will give you beauty for ashes. So I give up the TV side of things where I had learned to work my craft, right? But I also hadn't learned the deep hunger that it takes to really do this thing right. And I started doing theater. That's why I met Sterling K. Brown my freshman year. We both auditioned for a part. He blew it out the water. I was like that guy, right? And I started auditioning just to kind of see what this was about. And I started doing theater at Stanford, just little shows here and there on campus, and they were all free, of course. I wasn't getting paid for them, but I was learning. I learned Shakespeare, which was something that had always intimidated me. I was never interested in Shakespeare before because it was something you had to read for class. But I learned that when you're hungry and you spend the time to study and figure out what he's saying, you realize Shakespeare was a genius. What he said really tapped into the heart of human emotion and human experiences. You know, we always say there's nothing new under the sun, right? Well, so much of what Shakespeare was writing about 400 years ago, we go through today. I mean, that's why if you really listen to Shakespeare and you're dealing with actors who know what it means and they perform it the way that it really is meant to be performed, you can cry and not even fully understand the words, but you'll find yourself crying or laughing or just drawn in because it is an amazing way to connect to hearts and minds. And so as I learned Shakespeare, not just reading it, performing it, and doing theater and being around people who just love theater because they love theater, I was like, wait a second. That's when I really developed a hunger for performing and acting, and when I really learned that I loved it. But by then I was in the Air Force and I was in ROTC, and they were not going to pay for me to be a theater major. So I had to finish up. I did international relations, learned Spanish, traveled abroad, learned how to connect to people. And that was a blessing too, because I learned a different culture. I learned Latino culture, right? And how different people deal with each other and how to live with host families and speak the language and different accents. So I learned how to play with that as well. So that was also a way of performing. But long story short, my road to acting, yes, it began in LA with a Screen Actors Guild card and true, acting with professional people. But that's not where I'm glad it's not where it ended. And it certainly has not been my destination. And I'm glad about that, because what I'm doing now is taking what I learned from there and I'm expanding it, and where really God is, because I could not have designed where I am now. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd be where I am, I would be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I'm writing plays and I'm doing plays about a talk I had with my son and talking about race. What? If you would have talked to me 2 decades ago, I wrote a gospel play and about there's prison and there's a father and a daughter and they got to, what? I don't even know what that is. I don't have kids. But God has been doing this stuff through me because I just put myself in the place and I have a willingness and a hunger. And now my hunger is not for fame. It's not to be seen. It's not to be, given all of the accolades or the joys of being a star on the set, but it is to touch lives and hearts and minds. And so when my daily prayer is, Lord, please just let me get out of your way and in your will. Whatever you want me to do today, give me the grace, the energy, the courage, the strength to do it, and I'm going to press into it because I've seen him do too much. So I don't say no to him. I don't say why. I just press into it and try it and see what happens.
Right.
Listen, man, I done saw The Preacher. I saw the comedian. I saw the actor. I mean, I was going to ask you to just cry on the spot. Like, you got some moments, like, in that whole long, like, you told your whole story in that bit. And I was like, yo, I seen the actor, I seen the preacher, I seen everything.
There. And that's
it's all in there.
It's all in there.
It's in there. Go ahead, JR.
No, I'm laughing at you guys. But since you brought up the talk and the haunted, talk to us about that, because right now, we're still in that right now as a country, we're in that state with race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I thought that was very, potent, because that's something we don't do as a culture. I mean, as a country, we don't talk about these things. We're afraid. Yeah. We're afraid that that it may cause some issues. But I think the more we talk about it, I think the better understanding of culture will get better at this whole racial standpoint that we have. So tell us how did you get started with that?
You know, again, this is a God thing because I had my talk with Sterling when Freddie Gray died and the protests and riots and looting, all that happened in West Baltimore back in 2015 happened. That was my personal experience. And so I wrote, because I'm a performer, I just wrote a story called Sterling's Story. And the reason why I knew to write it was because I started, after I had the talk with him, weeks later, I started thinking about it and I started just crying, just weeping. And I'm like, what is going on? And I realized no father should have to have this talk with their child. And I started writing just naturally because I'm a creator, made in his image, right? So I started writing and it kind of turned out to be something kind of poetic, kind of just a story. And so I started sharing it with people. And I didn't realize, JR, that it would land for such a time as this, at this poignant time. Because realize, I'd written that in 2015. This was after Trayvon Martin, after Tamir Rice, after Freddie Gray, but before Alton Sterling, before Terrence Crutcher, before Philando Castile, before, and the names go on and on, and certainly before, Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, right, and Breonna Taylor. So what's happened is, what God placed in me as a seed to say, tell people about this talk you had with your son. Start with the story, right? It has flourished into this opportunity to talk about a deep issue that has become, the issue itself, I don't think has become deeper. I think white America is now aware of what you and I have already known, right? Mm-hmm. That we have disproportionate negative experiences with police officers. Black people, especially black men in our society, don't feel safe on the streets for many reasons, not the least of which racism is still alive. It's still real. It's not in everybody. I'm not talking about a few bad cops. I'm talking about the fact, though, that there is a way that people look at black people, especially black men, that makes us have to adjust. You know, I say in the show Haunted, I'm always reminded of my blackness when I wear a hoodie on the street, when I forget my receipt, when I forget to pay a debt, or that my body is a threat to some or a target to others. Right? And we don't want our kids to forget. We can't afford for our little boys especially to forget, because when they forget and they start doing silly stuff like running around, being loud or playing with a gun, normal stuff that kids do, right? But it's read the wrong way, they could lose their lives or their freedom or their dignity. Yeah. You know, people forget, you know, a lot of us, we all know people who had their first arrest or altercation with a police officer when they were 10, 11, 12 years old, and they weren't doing anything wrong. They were just playing. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time and arguably in the wrong skin for that particular context. And this little boy or this little girl has now had a gun pulled on them or a negative experience with a police officer, and everybody expects them to just shake it off and get over it. It's like, do you realize when you have a gun pulled on you, that's trauma? And when you're 11 years old, when deadly force is placed upon you or someone is yelling at you or jacking you up against a wall and they think you did something and you were just playing, like that changes the way you see yourself, the world, etc. And people just expect you to get over it. It's like, no, that's part of the system. It's how the system crushes people. Long story short, I was just having a talk with my son. And all that I'm telling you now came out not because I realized it or I just knew it because of some wisdom, but as I was sharing it with people, black people would come up to me and say, I can't believe you just put into words the talk I had or the talk I didn't have or the talk I wish I had. Let me tell you about my experience. And then white people were coming up to me and saying, wow, I didn't even know that talk existed. And I realized as I was developing the show, and I met my professor, my mentor, my director of the talk, Joseph Meagle, up at UNC Chapel Hill. I took a course with him called Developing Original Work. And so I put this work through the mill. My classmates, everybody was hard on me. They're like, that's not funny. I don't know if that works. That doesn't play. What are you trying to do here? So I went through a workshop, a 2-year workshop basically, where I was writing and rewriting this short story into a full-length play. And as I was doing that, I heard white people telling me one thing and black people telling me another thing, and I realized, you know what? Black people have the talk with their children because they want to protect their children. Conversely, white people don't have the talk with their children because they want to protect their children. We have the same goal. We want to protect our children, but we're doing totally different actions. And I see why. I disagree with not having the talk. We should all be but I know why now. Writing the talk and sharing it and crying and letting people see my vulnerability and then seeing them cry with me gave us a safe space to say, hey, look, I may disagree, I may not understand, but I see why, because I see your humanity. It's something beautiful about what the talk has done is it calls people in, doesn't call them out, but it allows us all to just sit and feel and be uncomfortable and be confused and be mad and be just want to be part of the solution, feel guilty, whatever we feel, and just put it on the table and let it be. And as I say, get used to being discomforted, so much so that you press into it, and I call it deliberate discomfort. So the talk is my example of being uncomfortable in front of a lot of people, crying and telling a story about how I talked to my son about race, and I didn't do it entirely perfectly. I did the best I could at the time. I don't have a message here where I'm trying to say, hey everybody, look, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm just saying this is what I did. I love my country. I also hate a lot of what I go through and what people who are different go through in this country. Let's talk about it. Right? So that's how the talk came to be, and that's the work that it's doing in the world. And what's interesting is my favorite part of the show is after I finish, we've all clapped, and I sit down and I hang out for 30 to 60 minutes and just talk to audience members and having real conversations about what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And the best compliment I've ever had is when people say, wow, I'm talking about things now that I never would have talked about even privately one-on-one, and I'm publicly talking about and admitting some stuff. And thank you for giving us a space and a place to talk about this. Right? So the talk creates courageous spaces to talk. And I thought that was kind of the end of my one-man show. I was like, that's what I have to say. Thank you, Lord. That was wonderful. And, it's been popular. I performed it really from Syracuse, New York, all the way down. I was going to perform it in Florida, but then COVID-19 happened. So I've been all over the place performing it. I performed it at a Muslim school, actually, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yeah, a Muslim, a parochial school. A friend of mine taught there, and he said, hey, bring it in. And we were able to talk about difference in religion and how wearing the hijab kind of marks you. And there's a talk that they have to have as well. I was like, oh, y'all, God, you know how the people who came, the apostles, when they came out that upper room speaking tongues, I'm like, God, this is what you've done. Like this talk that I have is speaking in different languages and cultures. I couldn't have designed this, right? And so I thought I was done. And then I was commissioned, because someone saw the talk, I was commissioned to write a story about a lynching of a man named Manly McCauley. He was an 18-year-old farm worker, who ran away with his boss's wife. She happened to be white. His boss was white, back in 1898. They run away. He's 18, she's 27 or so. They run away. They make it a few counties away, and they get caught. And she's returned to her home, returns to her husband. They have more kids, like nothing happened. And Manly McCauley is lynched within 24 hours. He's done, right? You don't do that in 1898. And nobody's talked about it much since. But the Equal Justice Initiative, with Brian Stevenson, the work he's been doing out of Alabama, etc., they have been working with communities throughout the country to help to bring to light the names of those people who have been lynched. And I believe the number is that between 1870 and 1940, there have been at least 4,400 lynchings of black people, right? Few of them have ever been put into graves properly. Few of them have ever been, I don't think any... maybe a handful of them have had people actually prosecuted for what they did, because it was mob violence for the most part, right? Long story short, I had to do research and find out more about Manly McCauley and about the Chapel Hill area where he was lynched and the history there. And as I was doing it, God just kept pressing me in. Because I said, well, if I talk about this, I have to talk about Wilmington, because the Wilmington race riots happened within days after he was lynched. Well, if I talk about Wilmington, then I have to talk about Ida B. Wells, because Ida B. Wells was this strong, powerful woman who was an advocate for Black Lives Matter at the time, right? It's equivalent. And she was speaking out against lynching in a country that was condoning lynching, like it was okay. There was people sending postcards of black people being lynched, and it was okay for folks here. Oh, yeah. And then if I had to do that, then I got to talk about the Reconstruction. I have to talk about the work of W.E.B. Du Bois. And all this stuff just started clustering into my head. And so I just dug deep, and I was researching and reading and writing, and I had this big history lesson. And by the grace of God, I was able to form it into this story that tells the story of Manly McCauley, but really it tells the story of lynching. And lynching technically is the act of putting someone to death by mob violence without legal permission, right? So it's not just hanging, but it's illegal killing, right? And I thought, what's the difference between what happened to Manly McCauley in 1898 and what happened to Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia in 2021? What's the difference between what happened to Manly McCauley in 1898 and so many other people, especially through the early 20th century in terms of lynching, and what happened to George Floyd on the street in front of us? That was a lynching on a curb in front of us, right? Why is it that when we see George Floyd and we see Ahmaud Arbery, instead of saying that's horrible, I can't believe it happened, and we did all get to that point eventually, but initially many of us, even black folks, said, oh, what did he do? I wonder what he did. Man, why was he in that neighborhood? Did he even live there? Why was he jogging there? Oh, what did George have in his system? And instead of seeing the man, we saw the black man. Yeah. So we were haunted by blackness. That's the concept that came to me, and so that's why it's called.
Pause right there. So you said we're haunted by blackness. This is a mentality that a lot of black folks have. Pretty much, you know, when you think of the term black, automatically things come to your brain. And I know they did an experiment with little kids, you know, maybe
dolls, right?
yeah, and it said, hey, when you see the white doll, what do you see? And it's like, oh, you know, pureness, clean, everything was good and positive. How about this black doll? And the little girl was like, nah, you know, that's wicked, evil. Do you believe that mentality? I was gonna ask, do you believe that's on black folks? But now thinking about it, white folks have the same issue.
Yeah.
Because when they think about black people, they think the same thing: dirty, thug, hoodlum. So what you're saying, pretty much, or what I'm gathering from what you're saying, is, hey, we thought about George Floyd, and the first question we asked, hey, what was in the system? What did he do? I wonder what he did. You know, we didn't think about the humanity side, or we have predestined or prejudgments in our mind, but where did that come from?
Yeah. And see, Gabe, that's it. Where did that come from? Yeah. And I was so startled because I'm gonna be honest. The first thing I thought when I saw the George Floyd video was, well, what did he do? Why was he out there? Was he resisting arrest? The first thing I thought when I saw the Ahmaud Arbery video was, why was he in that neighborhood? Is he from there? Was you know? That's the first. I'm gonna be honest. That's the first, because I'm haunted too. Here's the thing: when you think of what haunts, ghosts haunt. Ghosts pass through walls. They can pass. They're everywhere. They're in the ether, right? The concept of a ghost, right? And so this notion of blackness, it's in the groundwater, bruh. It's in the groundwater. So if you're looking at a lake and you're watching all the fish die, don't just look at what's in the lake. What's in the groundwater? Where's the water that's feeding it? It's pervasive. It's all throughout, right? And it's not anybody's fault. It's been planted long before we got here. The question is, are we going to acknowledge the planting and pull it up and kill that seed of hatred and seed of oppression and acknowledge it? Well, you can't pull it until you first acknowledge it and name it. So you're right. It began somewhere. It began a long time ago. It began back when folks looked at black people, when Europeans looked at black people and said, I need cheap labor, but I'm a Christian. Christians are supposed to love their neighbor. I can't just make people as slaves. That would be bad for my Christianity. How about I treat them as animals? That's it. If I can conceptualize them as animals, then I can do it. And their consciences were cleared because black Africans were animals. Okay, so now after a while though, you starting to see that they're reading. They're reading and they're living and they're loving and then you know there's rape that's happening, so you have little brown children that are actually human that are part of you now, and the cognitive dissonance got to be too much. So then we went through this process from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to Reconstruction, and now we're moving toward equity in the Civil Rights Act of 1965, and we're moving toward toward parity and toward equity, but we still have those seeds of inhumanity that have been planted in all of us, not just white folks, right? And we've got to reckon with those. We just, for some reason, it's uncomfortable. That's why. It's not for some reason. It's uncomfortable. Right. It's shameful. It's horrible what happened. And, you know, people have apologized. Well, I apologize for slavery. I get it. That's good. And let's deal with the fact that we have that film on us, that evil film of inhumanity, of greed. It comes down to greed. I wanted to gain wealth so badly that I dehumanize another person. And it's happening today in human trafficking. Yeah. It happens today in pimping. It happens today in drug sales and drug use, etc. People do it at different times, but it just, when it came to black people, it was done wholesale for millions of people at one time. So the whole nation has to reckon with that. And so I don't have a clear answer on how to deal with it, but I do know we first have to name it. And that's what Haunted did for me. These thoughts, the stuff that I started pulling up, Gabe, as I was looking at the history of how we got to what blackness is, it haunted me. And it made me realize, we need to recognize, acknowledge the haunting before we can get to the exorcism. That'll preach. That just came to me right now. So we've got to exorcise this spirit, right, of racism, but you can't exorcise it until you got to talk to the spirit, right? You know, Jesus exorcised spirits all the time. I am a legion. They came out talking to him. He's like, okay, I know who you are. Okay, shut up. You don't need to say anything else. Get out. But first I need to see you. You need to admit who you are, and then you go and go in those pigs or wherever, you know. Yeah.
Wow.
So I guess to the bulk of it is we all are haunted by slavery and racism.
Yes.
And so is that how you got your your play out in
That's
regards to that?
that's how I got the concept, and that's how it came out. And I have to thank God for my oldest son Sterling. He's a graphic artist. So again, back to production and producing, I asked him to put this concept together of a person trying to find their way from the roots of slavery and racism through a great country and building a tree that blossoms out of that and chooses different routes. So I use a lot of dichotomies or dialectics. In PhD, you have to come up with all these terms, but a dialectic is any situation where there are two opposite forces that are in conversation or in conflict with one another. So we have this dialectic of the roots, the dark and painful roots, but some good roots, right? Some strong roots from our ancestors, our creator, etc. And then the routes. We get to choose the routes. Now, there are some routes that have been chosen for us, and we're dealing with that. The school to prison pipeline, right? The I'm trying to think of all the different, just how we deal with the criminal system, poverty, cycles of poverty, right? But we also are at a place where we get to choose the better routes, where we have more equity, more inclusion, where we're talking to each other, where we're doing away with colorism, where lighter skinned people get more favor than darker skinned people. I talked to you earlier about Kamala Harris versus Stacey Abrams. They should both get the same street credit, right? Why? But so basically what I'm looking at here is acknowledging that we're all haunted. And that it's nobody's fault. Don't feel guilty about being haunted. It is what it is. You move into a haunted house, it's the ghost's fault. It ain't your fault. Them ghosts need to get out the house. You need an exorcism, And so if we just acknowledge that, we don't have to walk around thinking, oh, I live in a horrible racist country and everybody's no. What I'm saying is we live in a good country with good people who are haunted by racism, and it's real. And you can choose to be a part of the solution and admit it, or be a part of the problem and keep pretending like it's not a problem. And we're all going to be worse off if you don't deal with it. Because if you don't get that thorn out, it will get infected. If you don't kill the cancer cells of racism, not people, then it will grow more and people will die.
Well, routes and growth, the Curry Entertainment Group. Tell us about that. How did you start that, and why did you start that?
Well, basically, what I started doing was basically working with local actors, local performers, and trying to find a way to express what we were. Express our talents, right, in different ways. So what I do through my work, if you could go to sonnykelly.com, you see that I try to incorporate all these elements, whether it's a stage play like Hope's Light, which is a gospel show, it's an ensemble performance, right? So you have people of all ages singing, acting, and really being present there. Even I even like to add a talk back afterward if we can. I haven't done that for Hope's Light, but I've learned that concept of a talk back to talk through the issues is important. Or in the show, The Talk, even though I'm the only one on the stage, I sometimes will bring in a young person to do my slides, or I'll bring in a person to work my sound, right? So I have had teenagers from a youth group that I work with do my sound, my slides. They're there as my crew, and we've traveled with this. So what I love to do is give people a chance to kind of put their hands at the wheel of making a difference through performance, and realize you don't always have to be the one in the spotlight. You can be a tech, you can be a person who's helping me to write or rewrite, or we can do some ensemble work. But it's all about finding ways to connect your own talent and desire and your hunger to that larger work of purpose. And one thing that I love to do the most is when I have a talk back after a show, it's always acknowledge the folks who are with me on my team, but even sometimes bring them up to the stage and let them talk through their experience. Because I'm not the only expert here, right? We're all experts in our lived experiences. And I've learned so much from people who are younger than me. I've learned so much from people who are nervous about the stage. They don't want to stand up. They don't want to speak. They don't want to be seen, but they'll let me do it. But they'll give me the greatest ideas and insight and feedback. And so I like to make sure I give them credit, but also give them a chance to speak, because when they do, the performance breaks up the fallow ground. But when all this wisdom comes in from different places, then those seeds are planted and people's lives can be changed in ways I never could have done on my own,
Wow.
Yeah. Dope.
Wow.
So tell us, where did you get your inspiration from? Who inspires you?
For me, man, it's multiple. I think, I'll just give you the obvious answer. I'm inspired by Christ, because Christ put skin in the game. And I love that term because I think when you say put skin in the game, you're making it's real, it's grounded. Like you got to show up, not just say something pretty or write something pretty or make a beat and walk away from it. You got to physically go. Like you all know, you got to sell, you got to sell CDs out the trunk of your car sometimes. You got to show up and promote stuff. You got to show up when nobody else is showing up and still be there with attitude and with passion and promote stuff, right? You got to make sure you support your artists and make sure you're physically there with your artists in the studio. You don't just phone it in, right? You're there with them and listening to them and saying, are you okay today? Your tone, right? There's something about physically showing up that takes us to the next level of human relationship and of growth. That's why Christ showed up, right? And so I look at his sacrifice, I look at his selflessness, and I look at the wisdom and the joy with which he walked and taught, and also the real humanity with which he felt the hurt. He wept, right? He was hurting. He was in despair. So it wasn't like he was just floating around. He was there with us in the flesh, right? And so I want to be there with people. I want to, and this is a tough season for me because physical touch is my love language. I want to hug people. I want to shake their hand. I want to stop and I want to look them in the eye. You know what I'm saying? And that whether I'm directing, I love directing actors and I'm trying to get more out of them, or whether I'm on the stage and I'm performing, or whether I'm writing a play and I run a scene by my wife and I'm like, hey babe, what do you think? How's that sound? And she'll give me an idea. But when she hears my tone of my voice as I'm reading it, I hear her tone. Like there's connection in that presence. So for me, I'm inspired most by Jesus Christ. But I also will say, the leaders in my life, my father, who was a great teacher, who showed up and just loved his students and always taught with his heart. And he always taught creatively, finding new ways to connect to kids. He was a high school teacher, and I always said I'd never do that because there's no glory in teaching. I'd always be like, man, I'm being a businessman or something. But here I am doing the family business. And my primary is to teach. I told my wife the other day, I said, if I stop producing, if I stop writing, if I don't do anything else, I will be in a classroom somewhere teaching because that's what I love to do.
We can tell.
So all day, every day, and I tell this story a lot. I probably embarrass him now, but my father-in-law, Reverend Dr. Ron Gabo, the senior pastor of One Church Covenant Fellowship, he one day I saw him. I was new to the church at the time, and I saw him on all fours scrubbing a stain out of the carpet. And I said, that is servant leadership. I don't know if I had the words for it at the time, but when I look, I call him boss to this day. And I don't really know how I came up with the term boss, but it just stuck. And that's what I call him. And I think part of it is because I would follow that man anywhere because he's a man who's so humble and so true. And he just seeks to do what's right. And he doesn't seek to glorify himself. He's so humble. But he's got this work ethic, man. He outworks me all day, every day. And so I want to be the guy who's going to be like the first one in, last one out, outwork everybody who works for me, not to show them anything. Not to show them up, but to show them that I care by putting skin in the game again. So I've been blessed. I've had some great men in my life. And I will say, I think part of the work that we need to do, those of us who've got it together and who are men, we need to be those men for these young men coming up. Because sadly, there are a lot of young men who don't have that. And I think when I think back about Hope's Light, part of the motivation I had for Hope's Light is that I've seen so many fatherless boys looking for purpose, looking for identity in the world. And in Hope's Light, it's about a man who goes off to prison and he leaves his family for a decade. And he wants to come back, but he has to come back the right way. But his son, who's named after him, he's losing his grounding. He's losing his footing. And he hasn't forgiven his father. He doesn't know how to deal with life without the beacon of a father, or that a father can be. And the beautiful moment at the end where the father comes back into his life. And there's this scene where the son is so angry at his father because his father has abandoned him by going off to prison. And the son says, I don't need you. And the dad looks at him and says, but I need you, son. I need you. And I think if we can get our young men to understand that we need them, that they are worthy. They are worthy of our time, of our mentoring, of them being in our space, then we can get somewhere, So I think it's important that, yes, we recognize that kids need mentors and father figures, but father figures and men like us, we need purpose as well. So we can have a place to put that hunger, right? And so I don't know. I don't know what my next job will be or my next project will be, but I know I'm drawn to that area of covering kids, especially covering the fatherless. So there might be a piece that comes out of that. It might be just workshops. I'm not sure. But as you said, JR, for such a time as this, the shows Haunted and The Talk are very appropriate for the talks we need to have. So I've incorporated them with corporations, with churches, even with military folks in terms of teaching equity and inclusion and diversity. Those are important conversations to have. But I think also it's important to talk about family and connectedness and belonging, especially for our young people, especially for our young people who don't have a father figure who's there to tell them, you matter. I am well pleased with you. You are worthy. Stop searching for it elsewhere. I want you to be hungry and not thirsty. And I want to give you the confidence to do that.
Wow. Wow. If you guys had just tuned in, you're watching the Ask a Producer podcast, and we got Dr. Sonny Kelly in talking good stuff here, man. So we have like five minutes left, and I was trying to see if anyone in the audience that was watching had any questions for Dr. Kelly.
Throw it in the comments.
Not,
come through.
Please do. But Sonny, man, we thank you so much, man, for just coming out and just bringing the wisdom and also telling us about your career and life. What advice would you want to share to an aspiring artist, musician, or producers, anyone in your field? What advice would you give?
Success is wonderful, but success without character can be toxic. Protect your character. Be the same person you are in your performances, in places of performance, as you are at home, as you are when your mama's looking. It is so important that you be able to sleep at night. Do not take on jobs or gigs or opportunities that compromise your character. I cannot tell you enough. I sleep well at night. I do work of purpose. God has entrusted me to do greater things. He's expanded my territory. Not because I'm super upright and righteous all the time. I make a lot of bad mistakes. But when I know something's just not quite right, I walk away. I say, I can't do that. I leave the money on the table. Leave the money on the table. It's not worth your character. That's the best piece of advice I can give you at this point.
Wow. Great. We do have one question. My lovely wife, she wanted to know, are you performing the talk anytime soon?
Well, I actually, I'm going to be, I've got a video of it. So I'm actually working with I think it's the Pittsboro County Remembrance Coalition. They're getting together in August and they're going to do a viewing. So I'll try to get that link and put it on my Facebook page. They're going to do a viewing of the talk. So the video will be available. And then I'll do a live talk back, a virtual talk back with those folks there. Pittsboro is a place I'm very proud of. They just took down a Confederate monument. I think it was last year that was there. I'm very proud of people who do the work to acknowledge the roots and choose new routes. So as part of their work to move toward racial equity, they'll be doing that. Other than that, it's funny. I haven't performed the talk live for quite some time now because of the virtual world that we're in. I actually performed it. I performed part of it virtually about 6 months ago or so, and that was kind of odd because I was in a room. I don't have my set with my pieces and everything, but it still kind of worked. So I hope that as we get back to face, that I'll be all over the nation performing the talk, because it's a talk that needs to be had, and it primes the pump for the bigger talks that need to be had. So I hope to perform the talk and Haunted. I think Haunted is more of a performative lecture about our history. I talk about, I go all the way from the 1400s up to now, and Haunted is just a daddy story. And I play my dad and my grandmother, etc. And it's more of a drama. But I hope I get the chance. Tell her, bring me on out to South Carolina.
Oh, I'm already going. I was already in my mind, man.
Y'all working? You working? Okay. I do churches. I do temples. I do
tents.
I do rec centers. I've done it, man. I've done this thing. Like I said, it's been a blessing because the work is driven by hunger. My team and we make it work wherever because we know the message is what's going to stick with people, and God will bless it and it will go forth.
Absolutely. Well, since there aren't any, and how can you be reached?
Yes, so please do check me out at sonnykelly.com. It's on the banner below. I love it. Y'all's production is so excellent. Yes. And so people who want to bring me in or just learn more about my work, please do check in there. I will say I got a message from my website from a young lady that my wife and I pastored years ago back in Texas, and she just checked in to tell me thank you for encouraging her through the years. And I thought, man, see, it's those little things. Didn't get paid for it. Most folks they won't know her name, won't know. But the fact that we taught lessons, we stayed there, we spent time, we put skin in the game, that's what matters. So if you just want to go on my website and just say, hey, I like what you're doing, or hey, I have an idea for you, I'm open to wisdom that will help me to get better and sharper. And so if you go to sonnykelly.com, contact us, you will get a direct line to me. It'll go on my email. I'll see it immediately and I will contact you.
All right. Y'all hear it here. Mr. Dr. Sonny. I keep saying Mr., but you know.
Listen, it's all good.
Dr. Kelly.
I'm proud. I'm godly proud to be a doctor. I'm glad to be an example for others who will follow in my footsteps and to stand on the shoulders of other great people. But you can call me brother, Mr. Just call me Sonny. Like I said, just don't call me late to dinner because that's going to be a problem.
Well, thank you, man, for coming out on Ask a Producer. Ask a Producer. Ask a Producer. So yeah, Gabe, any final words before we close it out?
Hey, Dr. Sonny, in the words of like a rapper, you've been spitting them bars, boy. You had like 200 bars, no pause, just bars, spit. But now we appreciate you, man, and your wisdom, you know, your maturity. You seem like you're very well prepared for the season that you called to. So hats off to you, man, and your family, your beautiful family. And y'all just be on the lookout for this brother. Check out his show, The Haunted, and The Talk. And you know, we can talk after this and see what we can do to help you, man, and getting that out. So if you his website is on the screen. So check him out, you know, look him up, and you learn some things, So appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you all for making me feel like a real producer. I love it. Thank you, JRK. Keep up the great work.
You're that guy, man.
So y'all, guys, this has been a fun episode of Ask the Producer. And just, you know, we come on every other Friday. So we don't hit it every once a week, but every other Friday. And, you know, hey, check us out. You know, stay tuned. We got some great lineups coming to you. And JR, you got anything else?
No. Peace out. Thank y'all for watching.
Blessings.
Peace, everybody.
And love.
Yep.